Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing well. Today we've got a couple of tech news stories to get through, so let's not waste any time and get fired right into it. The first one up is concerning AMD, who have released a bunch of Ryzen and Radeon GPUs out to game developers to help them better their game optimization for AMD products moving ahead in the future. Last year they had released about 300 systems in April of 2017 to the different game developers out there to help with Ryzen optimizations, and they said they would put out another 1,000 by the end of the year. And now this year it looks like they're focusing more on the gaming side of things as they released Radeon GPUs as well out to some of the game developers, which is just going to help them overall improve their optimizations on any sort of AMD hardware moving ahead in the future. And this is really good to see. Obviously, getting more Ryzen optimization means getting more multi-threaded optimization overall, whether it be for Intel and AMD, as Intel themselves have already moved into 6 cores on the mainstream, and they're planning on introducing 8 cores by the end of the year into the mainstream CPU market. So having better optimization for more cores and threads is going to be better for everyone, I feel, whether you're using an AMD part or an Intel part, considering the fact that how similar they are now, at least in terms of having physical cores and some form of hyper-threading, or SMT as AMD likes to call it. So I think that's just going to be a good thing all around. So this isn't just important for us desktop users, this is also going to be important for console gamers as well, as we know that the upcoming hardware is rumored at least to be using AMD hardware on the Sony and well as Microsoft future consoles that are going to be coming out. We know that AMD has been developing Navi specifically for the Sony PlayStation 5, and it's rumored to also be using a Ryzen CPU. A lot less is clear on what Microsoft is going to be using, but it's probably going to be something very similar to what Sony ends up using on their PlayStation 5. So just getting these optimizations out there right now and just kind of getting ahead of the game with the developers working on future games that are going to be on these future console platforms, it's just going to be good news for gamers all around, them having more hardware to work on. And this also sheds a lot of light on the game development process in a way with how games are optimized, because I guess in my youth I had always assumed that game developers just had so many resources, and that when they were developing a game they would have, you know, every single new console and a PC with various hardware. Obviously you can't have every piece of computer hardware, but I would think if you were developing a game, you know, right now, that you would probably have like a GTX 1080 and a Vega 64, maybe like an RX 580 and a GTX 1060. A few different areas of the most modern hardware, and then Intel like i5 and i7, Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7, something along those lines. That's what I would imagine all game developers should have. I mean, that's realistically, that's the way that it should be. I feel that every game developer should have that basic set of hardware, like maybe 3 or 4 different builds that they can kind of work on to optimize for with a mix of different hardware, and try moving the configurations around. Put an NVIDIA card in the AMD system and then vice versa. Just, you know, mix it up, try different things, and make sure that it's running the best that it can on all the hardware, so that way you're not having to patch things afterwards and work with you know, driver optimization post-launch and everything like that. I feel like that's a pretty basic toolkit that every developer should have in their bag. But it's good to see that AMD is at least trying to get out there and provide more systems for developers so that they can be better optimized for too out of the gate. And I think we kind of saw that with drivers last year. It seemed like AMD started to do a lot better with day release drivers than they had in previous years. So possibly a step in the right direction all the way around here for AMD and gamers in general. So good to see. Next up is Battlefield 5. They are going to be having a closed alpha starting on June 28th. And I know if if this is the first time you've heard about it, because it was the first time I heard about it, I was just like, how do I get in this beta? How do I get into this alpha? Whatever it is, how do I get into it? I'm looking around. How do I can't stop. Once I started my hands, I can't stop. So anyway, closed alpha starts the 28th. You can't really get into it. You just got to be invited in. That's the best I could find out there right now, is that they're just sending out random invites. They've done this in the past with some other games. It does kind of suck. I mean, I would hate that if they were doing a pre-order thing, like, oh, if you pre-order, you get access to the closed alpha. But to be honest, I probably would at that point, just to get a jump on things and trying it out and seeing how it's running on the PC. But the news coming out of this really is the system requirements. EA, DICE, whatever, they've revealed the official system requirements for the closed alpha. This is not for the final release, although it's probably not going to change all that much. They might just update some things on here if we get new hardware from like NVIDIA or something. But taking a look at these, they're not really too surprising. Really what you would expect to have seen with Battlefield 1, going from Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5, because numbers no longer matter in series of game titles, or films for that matter. So we've got graphics on here. They're saying a GTX 1050 or a 660 2GB for the minimum, and for Radeon they're saying a 7850 2GB. That's at the minimum requirements. For CPU they're saying an i5 6600K or an FX 8350, which is pretty reasonable for Battlefield titles. They're pretty CPU intensive, especially on the Intel side. Like usually the quad cores without hyper-threading, they'd struggle a little bit. They'd really get maxed out. A 6-core probably going to handle a little bit better with an i5 though, although that is a quad-core 6600K, so your mileage may vary. It's okay, it's fine, but they do tend to get pushed pretty much to their limit on quad-core i5, so that's probably why that's on the minimum spec. Looking at the recommended requirement, they're saying for Ryzen, a Ryzen 3 1300X or an i7 4790, so an odd difference there, a 1300X and a 4790. That's a little bit of an odd comparison there to make. Memory, they're saying 16 gigabytes. Graphics, for the NVIDIA side, they're saying a GTX 1060 3GB card or a 4GB RX 480. So either way, it looks like this will run pretty well on semi-dated hardware. It's not old hardware, but it's previous gen for sure. Well, at least the RX 480 is previous gen, although the 580 is pretty much the refresh. And the 1060s. It's weird looking at that and thinking that that's previous gen. That actually is kind of current gen still. That's kind of the messed up situation. We need new graphics cards. That's the bottom line of this. Comprendez-vous? Parlez-vous français? But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. That's all the news updates that I have for you today. We've got the AMD sending out their care package to the game developers, and we've got the Battlefield 5 system requirements for the closed alpha. Please leave me your thoughts and comments down below about what you think about AMD sending out those care packages to help the game devs to optimize their games better. I really can't see much harm in that. And then also Battlefield 5, you're looking forward to that coming out. Did you get access to the closed alpha? If you did, can I borrow your Origin account? And if I'm allowed to, I'll make a video on the performance. That's really the only reason I want to get in the alpha, so I can make a video on how well it runs on different graphics cards. It's my sole motivation. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, as I said, guys, and I will see you tomorrow for another video. So don't forget to leave a like on this one and subscribe so that I still have a channel to come back to tomorrow. Ta-ra!